And I've got stuff up to show whenever you want to. So, okay.
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Andrew Davis, and you're watching Conversations in Pop Culture. And yes, I am hard to kill. And before I introduce my guest, I do want to remind everybody that this episode is brought to you by my friends over at Pocket Jack Comics, who have books like Palace of the Golden Princess and White Lily. And you can find their books at pocketjackcomics.com. And Preston is a good friend of mine. And people love Preston, people hate Preston, but Preston's always been good to me. And I like his books, and his books are immaculate, beautiful, and there's some fun, kinky stuff in some of his books. So, if you like women in charge and strong female characters who are very, very, very sexy, there you go. Go to pocketjackcomics.com, pick up some of those comics. But enough about that, because I have with me comic creator Les Garner. So welcome to the show.
Yo, I am actually just pulling up some stuff to share.
Well, we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that. I don't want to show everything just yet. I
want to make sure that I've got it locked and loaded.
I am gonna we're gonna get to it, but I do want to give you a chance to introduce yourself, because some people know who you are, some people don't know who you are, and you've been in a lot of different sectors. Obviously, right now you're heavy in comics, but I think you've done some film stuff. You've been around art, and so the quick introduction, because I don't want to spend 9 hours, as much as we could go through the 9 hours.
Quick introduction. I am my buddy Dirk Manning. He writes a lot of comics, and I've worked with him. Has nicknamed me the Appalachian Iron Man. I am an Appalachian, Southeast Kentucky, born and bred, hillbilly by birth, techie by God only knows what, and comic book nerd for life. I've been drawing since I was a little kid. Left Eastern Kentucky, moved to New York when I was like 19. Eventually worked in comics through the 90s. Eventually moved into 3D modeling and animation. Did that for a very long time, and leaving out tons of stuff. Eventually was always on the periphery of comics, even with the 3D stuff, and eventually was brought back around to comics at the suggestion of Brian Haberlin. Back in like 2014, 2015, when I started putting together my book Apocalypse Girl. Apocalypse Girl took off and really took off in 2020. And then lots of things happened, like COVID. But Apocalypse Girl got me back into comics and has moved me through a number of projects and all kinds of wild stuff, to where now comics is my full-time thing again. So along the way, I've done work for, good Lord, software companies, film companies, Fortune 500 companies, technical director, working with a couple of different anime studios. I mean, it's been all over the place.
Yeah, so obviously, I mean, I don't want to dive into too much of what you've done beyond that, because you've done a lot of stuff.
It just means I'm old.
But I do want to talk about the Kickstarter that's going on, because obviously it's Brides.
Yeah.
And so obviously I think it's pretty, if it's not already funded, it's pretty close to being fully funded.
Oh, it was funded inside of 48 hours.
I wasn't looking, I've been busy.
That's fine. It actually, the goal was 10K, and I believe I have to look past my camera here to see it. Do I have it up here? Oh my God, too many windows. Doing. And yes, I make stupid mouth noises whenever I click things, because I'm old and silly. But let's see. I don't even know where Brides is at right now. I think it's over 11,000.
It's perfectly fine that we don't know, because it's not that big of a deal. But what is the basic premise of Brides? Because obviously it's definitely related to Frankenstein. It's related to Dracula. It's related to something else is in there. But I want you to kind of explain it, because some people know the book, some people don't. There's a lot of comics out there. So what's the basic concept before we dive a little bit into it? And then there's other cool stuff with it.
There is a really short plug line that I developed for it that really doesn't do the story justice because of the depth of backstory in it. But the short elevator pitch is, what if the Bride of Frankenstein, who has problems, don't we all, got it in her head that becoming a vampire would solve her problems. And she seeks out Dracula and is taken in by his brides. And insanity ensues. So that's the short version.
Let's get into this, because obviously there's a lot of stuff going on here. So we have Frankenstein, and that's the familiar part. We have Dracula, that's the familiar part. But I don't really know much about Frankenstein's first wife. Also, Frankenstein's complicated because people forget that Frankenstein is the doctor, not the monster.
Yes.
But in pop culture, it's, you know, Frankenstein is the like bolted monster that is that, you know, and there's nothing wrong, but everybody's familiar with Frankenstein to some degree. But
in my book, because I am a really big, like what I went to college for was actually literature. And so like I'm actually keeping most of the corpus of Mary Shelley's work and Bram Stoker's work. I'm keeping the majority of that basically intact as I put these things together, because the two authors were about 40 or 50 years apart, I think. But the books, you know, things didn't move as fast back then. So it's totally cool for those things to have overlapped. And so there's like a part of the backstory that I have going on is that Dr. Victor von Frankenstein and Abraham Van Helsing were best friends in university, actually roommates, and stayed friends until Frankenstein's experiments, where they have a moral split, and that there's that. So that's an important part of the backstory that comes up as things unfold. And the first monster that, you know, everybody would say, oh, that, you know, Frankenstein. Well, you know, I always say Frankenstein's monster. And in the course of this, I actually use his name. The monster's name is Adam. And the bride's name that I've given her is Eva. So just, you know, playing the whole Adam and Eve thing. And there are ideas that I've had for a long time about these types of creatures that I think are a lot of fun and interesting angles on it that I've never seen done before.
So I want to talk about this, because what I think is fascinating, and this is just me, where I like the idea of taking a concept. So I'm a huge Zenescope fan, and I love Zenescope. And they were pretty much the idea of Van Helsing on Sci-Fi was theirs. And Ralph and Joe got a credit, and it's also based off of Zenescope, but then they changed everything else in the show. But Zenescope got paid for it, right?
Yeah.
And they got producer credits and a bunch of stuff. But they took, you know, the female Van Helsing idea and they ran with it. But so the idea of Van Helsing is well known in pop culture, right?
Yeah.
And then you have to evolve it, and you have to have a twist. I just had Dave Schwartz on, and he does Frankenstein in the Confederacy. And
that's fun.
Oh, I mean, I read the first two books, and I'm like, this is controversial. Hopefully everybody understands how to separate the Confederate, which I think most people think is pretty bad. You know, but I don't want to get into geopolitics or political positions here, but it's a controversial eye-catching book, but it's not that far off that they want to create a monster like Frankenstein's monster to serve the Confederacy. It's not a ridiculous idea.
Well, God knows they had enough bodies to use.
So, but the point I'm getting at is that it takes a familiar component and then it evolves it. And that's also here too, because I know Van Helsing, I know Dracula, I know Frankenstein. I have an idea of the world a little bit, but then we have a twisted position here. And the twist is that she wants to become a vampire. And now what the fuck do we do, right? Like,
and the crazy thing, like, there's numerous reasons. Like, she comes up with a litany of reasons why it would be a good idea to do this. And one of the reasons is, so like her and Adam, And it's funny because there's a thing that I introduce in there in some journals that I have from Van Helsing where he refers to them as the Homo moribundus. Like there's a whole stream of like pseudoscientific stuff about them. And one of the problems of the Homo moribundus and other resurrected creatures is they're still decaying. And particularly for Adam and Eva, they're made from body parts pulled from different people. And those body parts are decaying at different rates. And like at some point, and Adam tells her this, at some point, they have to go harvest new parts for themselves. And she does not like that. She's not into that. She's like that, that's terrible. Then there's also the issue, like everybody's familiar with Frankenstein as being kind of the original rage beast. I mean, the Hulk is kind of built off Frankenstein as a model in a way. And so what I've done with that is to say that, these Homo moribundus, they are creatures of their passions. They're awakened into fully formed bodies without the period of time needed to go through, gestation and maturation. And so here they are in these powerful bodies, but they're emotionally still kind of childish, and they don't have control over their urges, whether good, bad. Like they feel joy intensely, they feel anger. Everything's overly intense, which for me personally is kind of an allegory for my own issues with like manic depression and bipolarism. And the big catalyst for her is really that. She's like, I'm tired of being this way. I don't think it's possible for me to be loved because I'm so extreme and I go to all these extremes. And she believes, and rightly so, and there's reasons introduced in the book, that the blood of a vampire will tamp these things down because vampires are these cold, calculated predators. And by virtue of that, they control these things. In fact, they maybe have less of them. And she thinks it's a way to kind of knock the edge off, for lack of a better way of putting it. And of course, anything that someone takes as a one size fits all to fix all their problems is destined to fail, and probably fail not only miserably, but create far worse problems than they had to begin with. And this is definitely no different than that.
So let's talk about this too, because I don't know if you know Mike Barron.
Yeah, I know Mike.
I love Mike. And Mike, there's a clip of Mike speaking, and he was explaining stories, right? And usually you have an eccentric character. You have a crazy, ridiculous circumstance. And he explained, let's revive dinosaurs and put them on an island. What the hell could go wrong, right?
Yeah, that phrase is key to many a story. What could go wrong? It's I call it the whole.
It's the way he says it, because he says it's so eccentric, and I'm not even trying to make fun of Mike Barron when he says it, but he says it just like it's just so normal. Like, and it's a great clip because it's about what makes a good story, right? And
I call it the hold my beer rule. In every story, there's a moment where where somebody's like, hold my beer.
Or I think the third thing you said, or it's a variation, is like the dialogue between characters and just relationships, right? Because if you have two characters and all they're doing and they're talking in a way that's just fascinating on what they're going to say, right? Like Dinner at Andre is really good at that. That's a great movie for so many reasons. And if you haven't seen it, the whole movie's about dinner at like a family, and it's a gigantic conversation, really, is what it is. Brilliant movie, right? But the point is that this is this story is that what can go wrong with her wanting to become a vampire, and who is going to be, A, what is her new powers? B, what is her requirements to get these powers? Is there a quest involved? And then even going further, if you have these powers, who is your friends now and who's your enemies, and is this what you really wanted? And so
Oh,
both these questions are now like, and this is what makes this interesting, right? Because I don't know how you feel, and this is where I'm going with this question, I guess, is I no longer can just have, let's have an action shoot 'em up movie. I
yeah.
need something that is, and that's saying I still like actions, let's shoot them up movie and like stuff like that, but I need something more intellectual, if that makes any sense.
I mean, any good action, like you could have well filmed, intense, fun to watch action, but if it doesn't have an emotional core and a good narrative behind it, then you might as well just watch clips from a video game. And even then, video games these days have evolved to the point where they have to have that too. I mean, you just,
I'm man enough to admit that I cried when Jackie died in Cyberpunk. I was very upset. I played 20 hours. I knew he was going to die, and I'm like, oh, man, this is going to suck. And then after he died, I had so much ammunition, I had so much health, and I had so much weapons that legitimately I had the handgun that I was like shooting this way, and the bullets went that way. It was great. Like I beat the game like 4 hours after that. It was terrible.
Yeah, I'm very much in this for the story. Like I just, and I see this a lot too with artists in comics. It's like I think a lot. I don't know if I want to say all or most or many or whatever, but a lot of artists in comics are in it because we are storytellers. Like the art, the images are secondary to our ability to tell a story.
So
That's important.
Let me ask you this, because I see it not as most. I see it really 50-50, to be honest.
I
Because
could see that.
because I see a lot of people saying, look, I'm a cover artist. And if I could charge 500, 600 bucks and I could bang out a cover in 2 days, making 600 bucks, working, 10 hours on it, I'm making 60 an hour. And then I get some comps and then I move on to the next one and you bang out a bunch of those, you're making a solid living. And do I want to also tell a story on the cover? Sure. But, I would like a job, right? And I would like to make money. Or some artists say, look, I got a day job and then I'll do 4 or 5 covers and that's an extra $3,000. But I also think writers and writers who are artists are more in that vein, because, but I also think that there is a whole capital market, and that's the whole problem with the cover artist situation right now, is that great, you're charging me $700 for a cover or $500 for a cover or $400 for a cover. This is their job. So that's why I say it's 50-50. But I think the writers and the people who are artist, writer, creatives, they want to tell their story because they're not in it for the money. They would like to make money doing this, but you're getting hired to do a job, right?
Well, for myself, like I've somehow managed to land myself on a lot of projects over the last couple of years where people are paying me to draw their books, to draw their stories, but they're also asking me to help iron out their stories and to really contribute. And I appreciate that, because that's, to me, that it as an artist, it's important to me that I enjoy what I do, that I enjoy that I mean, if I'm not, it's like an actor who isn't engaged by the character he's playing.
If you look at my most fun interviews, right, you can tell when I'm having a good time on an interview. And this is where I'm at, is that you can tell when it's not a bad interview, but you can tell when I'm thrilled to have somebody on, and that it's a privilege. And the best interviews that I do are the ones where I'm having the most fun. And usually what happens is that the ones that I'm not having the most fun, not bad, but they're usually not the best, because you can tell. And it's also my guests when they want to be here. There are plenty of guests who need an interview who don't want to fully commit. And it's a fucking problem. And I don't think it just applies. I think it's partially in comics too, where I could tell when a project just wants to make money.
Yeah.
I can tell, and I could tell when an artist just wants to make money. And there's been plenty of people I've interviewed where I could tell that they're in over their head and that they're just trying to make money. There's been plenty of shitty books that I've backed that have done like $25,000, and they were a piece of shit done by companies that push out real expensive components. And I'm like, this is just a bad book. And you could tell it was about money. And it's a hard conversation to have with people you like and your friends who do these books. And you're like, dude, you put out a piece of shit.
Yeah,
that's me, but you put out
that is definitely the not like my personal mentality on this. I'm 51 years old. I've been a professional artist since I was 19. I've been a comic book nut since I was like 5. And really, in spite of all of the things I've ever done, the number one avenue for me, the number one place for me to land as a career and with my creativity has always been comics. So for me doing something like Brides or like my previous books, Homestead or Apocalypse Girl, these are, every one of these I get to do is another day that I get to live out a dream that I've had since I was a little kid.
Let's talk about that too, because very few people get to live out the dreams that they want to live. Very few people get to, I get to interview some of the people that I grew up watching. I interview a lot of people in comics, interview a lot of voice actors, interview a lot of wrestlers. I interview porn stars. And how many people can say, I get to have a hour-and-a-half conversation with somebody who I idolize? And very few people get to do it. And very few people get to do it from legitly their basement in their house, even going further. And it's awesome. And it's surprising. So every time I do an interview, so I just had Ariel Axe, fascinating interview. She's one of the smartest women in the adult industry by far. It's super interesting. And then Cherry DeVry is also super fascinating too. That was a fun interview, but like, it's a privilege, right? And I think people forget that sometimes, that if you're working in comics and you're able to make a living doing this, it's a privilege.
Oh God, yeah, yeah. And it's one that can get yanked out from under you at any moment. Like, if you want to have any longevity in this business, you better be willing to work.
I agree. You better not burn bridges. I'm a wrestling fan, and The Undertaker said it best: the toes you step on the way up are the connected asses you're gonna have to kiss on the way back down.
Or they're gonna be kicking you in the teeth on the way down.
That too.
Yeah.
That too. Ladder rungs hurt, everybody. Ladder rungs hurt. Just ask Kevin Owens; he'll tell you all about it. If you know what that's a reference to, I don't know what to tell everybody. But anyway, but since we're on the topic, I do want to talk about Inside Baseball a little bit with this, because I think that there's a lot of stuff, and I don't want to ruin the story too much. It's 44 pages. We're gonna show some covers in a little bit, but I do want to talk a little bit about Inside Baseball, because this is an interesting campaign, because obviously it is being published by Divinity Comics, which is Mike and Mindy Wheeler's company. I think it's their first book that they didn't fully write, because they did Boobs, they did Star Wars, they did a Trip Story. I don't know if they did another one that might be.
They had what actually my favorite book that they did was not their most successful by any stretch, but is a really good book. It was a comedic thing called Sinister Support Services. That was like, basically it's a phone tech support for supervillains, and it's hilarious.
They also did G Busters. That's another one they did. But the reason why I bring this up is that I think all of the ones that I mentioned were written either by Mike or written by Mindy. I don't know if somebody else wrote them. And then obviously other people were involved, other artists were involved.
Yeah.
But this is kind of their, I think, first book that, and I could be wrong if I'm wrong. Feel free
No,
to
it,
correct.
it is. It is their first book that is not theirs. And what a lot of folks don't know about Mike, and I hope he doesn't get mad at me for outing him on this. Mike is actually Mike is a educated, studied writer. Like he went to school, serious education for writing. And
Wasn't he in a class with the guy who wrote The Dirt in college?
I don't know.
I think so. I think Mike went to the guy who wrote the Motley Crue book, The Dirt, that got made into the movie. I think he was like in a class to do with him. He went to college, which is crazy. Because Mike was speaking about this, where like basically every day he was writing like 20, 30 pages. And that's what you have to do as a writer.
Mm-hmm.
You have to write shit. In order to get 3 good pages, you have to write like 300.
Like Mike, I've been friends with him for a very long time, and Mike and I talk quite a bit. And I think that in the months and years to come, people are, I hope, going to see him like spreading his wings as a writer in a way that I know he's capable of. That I know he's got, like, I literally know he has these scripts. He has a mountain of scripts, which I hope he didn't get mad at me for saying that. Like he writes a lot. He writes all the time. Like it's the same. It's just like me sketching. I sketch all the time. Can't help it. And I'm excited to see where he goes with some of his more, I don't want to say serious. Well, yeah, serious. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the stuff.
I want to dive into this a little bit because obviously, I want to stay on Divinity, and then I want to talk about writing in general because I think it's fascinating. But obviously, Divinity Comics is coming off of a 50,000 plus Kickstarter. They're coming off of a bunch of other successful ones. And so what is that like? Because this isn't their book fully, right? In which that it's not, I mean, I don't know the full arrangement, and I'm not going to dive too much into the financials because it's irrelevant. It's obviously pushed out and published by Divinity Comics. It has Divinity Comics logo on it. I don't know if it's ever going to be picked up by somebody, but that's neither here nor there. But what is that like for you? Because there's a lot of momentum going on. I'm a strong believer in momentum, right? My whole life, when momentum is going good for me, a lot of other good things happen, right? And then sometimes when it rains, it pours in my life. And when I have a bad day, it's a bad week. It's just the way it is, right? Where everything hits wrong that week, and then a week later, things get back on track. And then all of a sudden, when it rains, it pours in my life. But what is that like for you? Because there's obviously, Kickstarter knowledge with what they're doing. There's support, there's momentum, there's backers and they have a fan base. And then on top of that, you're not alone in this. And I hate to say it, and it sounds weird when I say it, but having somebody who you could be like, yo, this Kickstarter, we just had a shitty day today. And just having somebody say, yeah, but we had a bunch of good days. And somebody just to be there reminding you, because there's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, I don't know if I'm off base here, but when I have a partner and something's going wrong in a business, sometimes it's helpful just to have another person who says, I feel it too, man.
You know what's funny about this? If Mike sees this, he's going to chew me out in a friendly way. Because I was just talking to him yesterday. I was like, people fucking hate you, right? There's people who hate you. They don't know the guy that I know. And it's hilarious because he's like, yeah, don't tell him. He's like, don't say good shit about me, dude. It's like don't say good things about me. He's like, I only want to say the bad shit. I'm like, well, I'm going to say whatever's honest for me to say, dude. And like, I've been friends with them for a long, long damn time. And, there were conversations that were had. I've done work for them in a number of different ways behind the scenes on a lot of different stuff, just helping them out with a lot of different things that I'm capable of. And I know it's nebulous, but actually to go deeper into it than that, I don't like to I don't want to get into a lot of the nuts and bolts.
You don't want to get into how the sausage is made.
Well, yeah, and I think that it kind of leads me off the beaten track in a way that's not. But it's actually kind of irrelevant to a lot of stuff.
Because the reason why I bring all this up is that I think it's fascinating when you come into a company and there's infrastructure there, right? So
and that was
it's helpful in a lot of ways because I have a day job and there's a huge amount of infrastructure.
Yeah.
And oh my God, I don't think people understand. I had a business, and I'm going to make this point really clear. My business went from 14,000 to doing a little under 30, right? And there was no goddamn fucking infrastructure. And let's just say it was a very expensive learning curve. And it was very expensive. And now, because that was last year, y'all can make fun of me, but the WNBA is going to make me very, very wealthy. I'm killing it right now with those cards. I'm killing it right now. I have some UConn cards that I'm selling for like 1,400 that I paid like 200 for. So like, and they're going to sell. Like there's real money in this shit. But last year there was no fucking infrastructure in there. And now there is, and profitability is off the roof. And it's way less stressful. And so that's the thing that I think is so interesting about this book in particular for you, is that you're coming into a company that has infrastructure and a battle plan, and there's also
they certainly do. Like there is the amount of thought, and I'll just say they fucking know what they're doing. They absolutely know what they're doing. And I don't want to dive too deep into it for one reason, and it's a promise that I made to them.
I'm not asking you to reveal anything.
No. This will make sense because I've been told numerous times, they're like, we're not publishing other people. They're like, we're working with you because of our friendship, and because we think that the book is really good. And they're like, they don't want people sending them submissions. They don't want people. They're not into that. And it just happened that they happen to be good friends of mine. And I had this thing, and we got to talking about it, and we're like, why don't we give this a shot and see what happens? And so far so good.
I'm not going to press too hard on that, but I guess it's also the idea that I think they're doing the printing, and they have like a small little print company, and then they're doing marketing stuff. And so like that's the other thing too that is fascinating. That's why I bring this all up, is that it's really interesting when you start coming into a company that is, you do 50,000 on Kickstarter. Very few people do 50,000 on Kickstarter. There's a club that is 10,000. There's a club that's 30,000. There's a club that's 50,000 plus. Then there's the $100,000 club. And then what is there, like 9 creators who've done $1 million? And I'm not counting Boom. I'm not counting Boom.
The funny thing for me with all of that Mike and Mindy, they rib me mercilessly for this all the time behind the scenes, is that I don't know. I literally have no freaking clue about most of that, and I'm happy to not know a lot of that. And I think part of what had them wanting to work with me was just that, like, I'm like, look, guys, I couldn't give two shits about these parts of the business. Don't care. Don't want to know. Not my focus. Like there's that's sausage, and there are sausage makers for that. I want to come over here and bake the souffle. Okay.
You want to be a creative director. You don't want to be a COO, chief operating officer. No. I want to be a chief operating officer. I'm like a COO. Like I love.
I've been an art director for numerous companies, and I'm good at that. And like I can interface in that way with bean counters and management people, but I am about, like, me personally, what I am entirely about is creating interesting, meaningful content, creating interesting, meaningful books and art, whether that's someone hires me to bring their thing to life, and I bring it to life in the best possible way that I can, or I am in a position where a publisher is going to work with me to bring my stuff to the world. Whatever it is, my job is to make the best stories I can make and the best artwork I can make. And outside of that, I give zero shits. I don't even want to know, don't want to hear about it. You know, like, it's just not, I'm like, yeah, you know, it's like people can talk and people will talk and they'll say stuff to me. And I'm like, you realize I'm literally not hearing 3/4 of what you're saying because it's just not, it's not on my radar. Like talk to me about characters and character motivations. Don't talk to me about that's like, maybe we could talk about some marketing or something just so I can try to have a story based influence in some of the marketing. But you know, that's kind of it.
That's so fascinating. I mean, I'm the exact opposite, in which I'm not very creative, right? You know, I think I might be good at writing television to some degree of like
When,
financial stuff because I just know it. I just know, like, I love money, right? And I love financials. I love stocks. I love investing. I love that whole thing. And so I could write like an investment show. Oh my god!
Oh shit, dude. When Mindy and I first started talking about Brides, I literally had come up with a synopsis of a story, and I had went ahead and done a painting, and the painting had started as a sketch on a lot. The way the whole thing started, I was actually live streaming every week on a particular network out there, Pops Van Zant's Madness Network, and I've been doing for a year a show on there called the Comic Artists Hour, and I kept running into this thing where I'm like, shit, what am I going to draw on here this week? And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start drawing the freaking Bride of Frankenstein because everybody knows that character. It'll be fun. I'll enjoy it. Here we go. Let's do this. And literally the first drawing that I did on the stream, when I got done with it, I looked at it and I was like, that's got to become a painting. I have to paint this. Like, I just have to do this. And then I'm working on the painting, and you know, of course, as I'm working on the painting, I'm just thinking about this character, and I'm thinking about this world, and I'm just, all these things come together. And before I knew it, I was like, oh, this is who this character is. This is who she is. This is what her situation is. This is what her interactions are. And then from there, the whole thing about her and the vampirism and the decay and the emotional stuff and all that stuff came together. And then there was like a pause in my brain, and I just looked at it and I was like, oh, this is a book and it's called Brides. And it was like, pop, there it is. And as soon as that title came out of my head, because I was like, Bride of Frankenstein, Dracula's Brides. Oh, the title of this book has to be Brides. Just Brides. No Dracula, no nothing else, just Brides.
Isn't it funny how that happens, right? Like,
and
just ideas.
What's wild is when that happened, the moment that happened, my synopsis tightened up. And then within about 2 days of that, I had written the backstory to this world that became about a 25,000 word Bible. Like, I just wrote obsessively for like 2.5 days. It's just like, oh, and this, and this, and this, and this goes back here. And like, I mean, it ropes in a lot of my interests and stuff. And it actually ties into, I recently finished my first novel that is a Lovecraftian horror novel, which plays off of another Kickstarter that I've got coming up for a tarot deck that I developed. That's a Lovecraftian tarot deck with a whole storyline behind it, and all of the stuff, Brides, the Lovecraftian stuff, a couple other things I've got cooking, all of it are in the same world. I'm not pushing it out there to people as a shared universe because that gets trite and silly. But it's one of those things, more what I'm hoping for is more in the way that back in the day, you would read a Stephen King book, right? And you come back and you read another book and be like, oh, this is also in Bangor, Maine. Or, there'd be another town and another, and there was, and you started to realize after you were about 5 books deep that these were all connected in some way. And I love that. I love that. I love it when it's done that way too. And it's not just marketing that's beating you over the head with it. It's you're inviting people gradually to come explore this world, which is it's my thing. I love it. I love it.
I mean, Carl Hennison does that in all of his books, because they all take place in Southwest Miami and down in Florida, and there's always a murder, and there's always a central characters, and some characters come in and out, and then there's just some other stuff. But you get an idea that you kind of feel like, okay, cool, we're dealing with a lot of rich people in Palm Springs here, and a lot of shit's going on, and you get the town and the cities and the things, and they take place, all across on the coastal of Florida in different areas. But you get saying they're not directly connected, but you get a sense that, okay, this is kind of a crazy, environment we're in here. So I get it.
Florida is an interesting place. It's a good place to base that kind of stuff out of.
Oh my God, just Razor Girl. What a great book. What a great book. It's one of my favorite books of all time because it's absurdity. It's absurdity at its finest. It's great. And the whole thing from start to finish is just wonderful. It's just that book felt like 5 minutes. That's how that book felt. It was great. It was the best $15 I spent on my Nook back in the day. It's not a bad thing. There's a lot of other things that I could have done for $15 that would have been far worse.
Oh yeah.
But there's a lot of things that I couldn't do for $15 that would have been far worse also. But not the point here. I do want to talk about the other stuff that's also interesting about this campaign. Before we start showing some of the cover stuff you've done. And the other thing is that it is a semi-cost effective campaign, to the fact that you're writing, Mike's writing it and helping shape it, and is acting as a co-writer, editor, and all that stuff. But you, I think, are doing most of the work, if not all the.
Yeah, the story was written by me. The first couple drafts of the script were written by me. Then Mike came in acting as an editor to me, and then offering ideas here and there, and he would insert some stuff, and then I would go back over things he inserted, and it became it was collaborative in the sense that he would offer things about scenes, and he would pose questions to me.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Sorry to cut you off. It's different than if you paid an editor, because this editor has a vested interest and is your publisher. And so you're not paying your editor because they have a royalty ownership vested interest stake in the book, right? So that changes the relationship of a co-writer, co-editor, co-idea person at the helm, right?
Well, and Mike's this is the first book of this kind, being, it's not a satire. It doesn't have tongue-in-cheek humor in it. It's a very different book for them. And from the get-go, Mike was like, if we're going to do this, he's like, I want it to be the best it could possibly be. And that was actually a little intimidating at first, because I was like, oh shit, how much crap am I going to take from Mike? Because I know he'll give it. And I mean, in the best way possible. And he took something I had that was pretty damn good. I will say, I feel like it was pretty damn good, or I wouldn't have shared it with anybody. And anytime there was something that he would come up with to add to it or to tweak in it, if I didn't like it, he would defer to me. He would always say, he would be like his name being on it is because of me. He's like, you don't have to put my name on this. He's like, it's yours. This is yours. I'm just helping you make it the best it can be. And I was like, dude, no, I don't do that. It's like, you've helped me. You edited on this. You have to get credit. And
So to go further into that, because obviously, I think sharing is caring in some
oh yeah,
circumstances.
the man is a brilliant fucking writer, and I really want to see more of that side of him get to come out.
So this is my gripe, right, with comics. I have no problem. Is there are people who want to share with me and want to be supportive, and there's people who want to take and they want to take every component of this, and it's a problem, I think, as far as interviewee and interviewer, and I think it's a problem in life collectively because it's really hard to find people who say, "I want to share," you know, the table with you, where you got to eat too, right? And because look, there's plenty of people who want to share, because they're in an abundance, and then there's plenty of people who have helped along the way, and now they're in better places, and they don't come back down or they don't lift people up, and I think it's a real problem right now in society.
There was there was a, for the sake of not alienating people in any direction, I won't drop the president's name. There was a president who I really admired from a long time back who kept a plaque on the Resolute desk. And that plaque had I'm probably going to butcher the quote, but what that plaque said is, anything is achievable so long as you do not care who gets credit. And
it's true.
That stuck with me for a long time. I mean, I want credit. I need credit. Credit in my career moves me forward. But like with this, it's like, yeah, Mike helped me write bits of it. He's been my editor on it. And because of his influence, I'm a better writer now.
This is the thing, is that I need credit, or if somebody's in a better place and I've helped you, at some point I shouldn't have to pull in the chip and call in the chip. And there's plenty of people who are in better places when they had nobody in their corner. They basically, I was there multiple times when they needed, and I'm like, they now won't take my calls. And it says more about them than it does about me, because I'm still interviewing people at the top and I'm going down to the bottom because I play in everything. And John Cena has something in which that, and it's WrestleMania week, so everybody's gonna have to deal with John Cena quotes for the next 6 days. But he said no opportunities beneath me when he was filming the Barbie movie, and no opportunities beneath me. And if I helped you and you're in a better place and you can help me, why the fuck aren't you doing it?
Yeah.
And it goes back to putting Mike on the book, because you didn't have to do it, but in many ways, it's a thank you. It's also giving credit. It's also saying you've helped me, and so I'm going to throw it back to you, so that not as a jab, but like there is something to be said about that.
Yeah, it's been a really good experience working with Mike, and I think he and I are probably going to work together, again in the future on hopefully a lot of stuff. I mean, so far I've gotten to work over the last few years with a bunch of different writers in different ways, and this time with Brides is more similar to what I did years ago on Apocalypse Girl, where it's mine, and like, so part of the ground rules were, well, it's my book, so the buck stops with me. I get final say on things and all that kind of stuff. That and that's part of the ground rules. But I also appreciate. I mean, like Mindy acts as art director for them, and like she is totally unafraid of when I'm like showing them pages and stuff. She has no problem with looking at me and going, Les, you can do better on this. And frankly, it's like I've been a professional artist for 32 years. After 32 years, not many people will say to you, you could do better here. Not many people will actually hold you accountable for the quality you claim you want to achieve. And Mike and Mindy have both done that with me on this book in a fashion that is far, I know, far more kind, professional, and diplomatic than anyone ever expects out of them. And part of that is just our relationship. And it has just been.
You're bringing up a good point, right?
It's been an amazing experience so far.
You're bringing up a good point, and then we're going to talk about covers. And actually, two more things before we get to your covers, but you're bringing up a really good point about understanding of professional criticism, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell a story. There's a guy, Logan Easton. He's a wrestler, and he's on an indie show, and Matt Hardy is on it. And then he asked Matt Hardy to watch a match, and in the middle, he interrupts Matt Hardy. He says, "Oh, I was doing that for this thing," and Matt Hardy said, "You know what? You're right, kid. Good luck." And so, look, everybody's done that at some point. But if I ask somebody to critique an interview, right? Especially when you're first starting out, right? And not every interview is going to work. Interviews sometimes just are shitty, right? Things happen in life. Sometimes you just have a bad issue in a comic. That happens too. But learning how to take professional criticism and how to get it professionally, right? If you say, Andrew, I don't like the cheetah in your backdrop. That's not professional criticism. That's you don't like a picture, and I'm not fucking changing my picture. If you say, hey, Andrew, I wish you would let your guests speak more, right? Or I wish you gave a little bit more, this, or I wish you had a more pointed question, or hey, I really wish you spoke more about the financials. That's professional criticism. And so what is that like? Because it is, I think people are terrified to give it because you don't want to fucking piss off the person you just paid. And then they say, you know what? Fucking just shut up your buck.
In working with Mike and Mindy, it's I think there's been a great deal of like mutual respect that was there from the very beginning. Like my introduction to Mindy was a very long time ago when I critiqued some of her work online, and I was gentle about it, but I was like, yeah, this is pretty good here, but you might want to think about these things, and because that's my style. That's how I like to do things. I mean, I'm not bombastic like that. And, there's been this long-standing mutual respect, I think. And, I mean, that's really kind of the beginning and end of it. It's like, if you have respect involved, then you can say things to each other that someone who you don't know has respect for you says something. You might be like, who the hell do you think you are? I mean, there are people who say shit to me sometimes. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Don't care, but when it's people I respect, I will listen to anybody's critique, and and I reserve the right to take it or leave it. That's part of the deal of receiving critiques. And then if it's somebody I respect, like I respect what they've done, then I'm going to take it, and I'm probably going to listen to it a little more closely. And it's been great. It's like they've really. I mean, look, I think they have helped me elevate my work in a way that is I'm really proud of.
No, I don't disagree on that. It's also who it's coming from, what they've done, and where they're at, right?
Oh yeah.
I also think though that some people, and I've had this conversation, I haven't done a comic, right? But I run a business. So if I'm talking to you about running a business, and we're talking about the comic side of the business, and I was on with somebody, and I got a free coaching session, and that anybody could have joined, but I was the only one who showed up. It was great. And this woman sold her business for $15 million. And what she said to me, and it stuck with me, is that every business at its core is the same. So whether you're selling baseball cards or comics through Kickstarter or eBay, it's the same position at its core. Now, there's differences if you're kickstarting something or you're selling comic books on your website, but at its core, the business is the same. So I think there's also a component where sometimes people don't understand certain things. And people, I've had people privately say to me, people don't respect you because you haven't done a comic. And I'm like, yeah, I could get that, but I also just grew a business starting with $1,000 over the last 8 years to doing, we're on track, hopefully, to do 45,000 to 50,000 in sales with no debt taken and legitimately reinvesting the funds. So I think I have a pretty good idea on certain things. I don't know how to TIFF a book, though. And I have no desire to learn how to TIFF a book. So I'm not going to talk about that. But I think that's something where I just think it goes back to who's saying it and what people want to hear. Because, again, if you want to hear about business, I'll talk about that all day with people.
That's definitely a conversation to have sometimes.
It's the same shit, whether you're whatever you're selling. If you're selling a car or you're selling a comic book, at the core of it, sales are the same. They're the same. It's just the difference is how you approach it and what your target audience is. But I digress because I do want to talk about one more thing before I let you do your cover stuff and show some covers out. But I think this is the other thing is that, as I was stating, the book's relatively cheap to produce because you're doing all the art. I think you're doing most of the covers, which we're going to get to. And this is the segue in.
Yeah, actually, I'm doing all of the pencils, inks, and colors inside, and all the covers are mine.
So what is that like? Because it raises some cool stuff. Because obviously, I don't think you guys are taking a writing fee off of it. In which that the not to get too deep into the weeds, but you don't have to pay an artist, you don't have to pay an inker, you don't have to pay a penciler.
In terms of the creative team, as a creative team in terms of overhead is me, and that's there you go. That's how it was when I did Apocalypse Girl too. With Apocalypse Girl, I was the writer, penciler, inker, letterer, colorist, cover painter, and there were collectibles for it that I sculpted and produced.
But that's the thing is that it really changes the game because all of a sudden you now don't need to go and be like, oh shit, I gotta find $6,000 to do this, right? You know, and I'm not saying your sweat equity.
In a sense,
just be quiet for 2 seconds. I want to get the point across, please. I'm sorry. This is a really important point. I don't want to devalue your sweat equity because it is worth money.
That's exactly where I was going. I was going to say that a lot of times, folks will be like, "Oh, well, you don't have the overhead in this," and I'm like, "How many freaking hours do you think I have to spend to do this?" It's like, like Apocalypse Girl. Now I still worked my quote unquote day job as a technical director for animation studios and doing 3D and all that stuff. So Apocalypse Girl came together slowly over like years. But Brides is, and most of the books that I work on now, thank God, I'm in a position where I get to go, okay, we're doing that. And I work on that and I push through till it's done. So
the reason why I wanted to bring this up is that this is worth money because if your page rate is X, but you're not getting paid because you're an owner, your pay compensation.
That's your investment. That's your investment that you're sinking into it. Like every hour that I spend working on Brides is an hour that I could have spent working on something someone is, an external source is putting revenue in my pocket.
Or it could be something else where it's like you could be watching a television show. You could be hanging out with your significant other. If you have children, maybe you miss your son's baseball game because you're working on this, or maybe you only get to see it, every other Saturday because you're working on this, or maybe you're only getting 6 hours of sleep because you're spending 2 hours a night building this thing out. It's not free. Was the point I'm making, and I don't want to value somebody's time.
No, you're absolutely right, man. That is exactly right.
So I wanted to get that, but also it makes that it's a doable project because I know people who do not have $6,000 who have ideas, and it is brutal, and it's not fun, and it also is. I hate to say it, but it's like not profitable what they're doing, and it's a nightmare. And I look at this, and I'm like, it's a real advantage to be the writer and the artist.
Yes, it is, and to me, I think that comics in general, or the world of indie comics, I don't see how they're not moving more and more in that direction, to where that becomes where it becomes more a thing where the individual creator who is the writer and the artist will tend to have, at the very least, more agility in how they can approach things, because they're not having to manage a team and they are, doing it themselves like that. I personally dig that a lot. So
I run this whole show by myself. I don't want a producer. It's only gonna fuck shit up. Now, I've tried hiring somebody to get me guests. Fuck shit up. It genuinely fuck shit up. Now, I did have an editor that was helpful. That's a different discussion, because they take 20 of them, and then I take another 20, and so now I get 40 out quicker. And I cut out 40, 60, 80 interviews a year. That's helpful because it just speeds up the process.
Yeah.
But I hire an editor, and we'll do 10 at a time, and I hire what I can afford. But again,
I recently hired an assistant, Ashley, who is awesome. She's been helping me with like scheduling and fielding emails and phone calls and stuff like that, and a lot of stuff that normally, like I literally, this is probably one of my strengths, is I track my day down to the minute. Like, I'm up at 4:30 a.m. I'm drawing by 5. The first page of the day is done by 9. The second is done by noon. Noon to 12:30, I have lunch with my wife. 12:30 to 2 is the third page of the day. From 2 or 2:30 to 5 is the fourth page of the day. After which I go to the gym for 2 hours, bust my ass, come home, have dinner, hang out with my wife for a little bit, go to bed, rinse, repeat. Every day. That's my life. It is disciplined down to the minute.
My life is not that. My life is not that at all. I have a structure, and I maximize my efficiency as much as I can. But again, but also I forced myself to take an hour break, in which I am forced to do it. And usually I'm just watching like a television show, because if I don't, I will work for like 19 hours straight, and then I'll be exhausted and I'll be fucked up. And I have a day job, but my day job is very structured. It's very structured. That's
what going to the gym does for me. Like, going to the gym and working out is like, that's what helps my brain reset and keeps me from going completely nuts from being in this room all day.
I don't think people understand. So I have a day job, and I'm quality assurance, and I'm a digital accessibility. So when I'm not doing digital accessibility, I do quality assurance, and I hand over something. It's getting corrected, but guess what? It's going to take them 3 hours. And I'm like, what the fuck do I do now? It's terrible. Like, it completely fucks with me. I'm like, is it going to get to me? It's going to get to me. Is it going to get to me today? And meanwhile, like, I'm massively ahead of schedule, but it makes me so fucking unnerved. It's terrible. It's terrible. It's like the worst thing in the world. It's absolutely terrible. But I do want to show your covers, because I know you got the Kickstarter.
Yeah, whenever you bring this up, then I'll start kind of cycling through some of them. Yeah, this one is an homage to the movie poster. I think a very iconic movie poster from The Lost Boys. And I don't even know, just something popped in my head, and I was like, oh man, I have to do this. Let me let's see here now. I want to make sure that oh yeah, and there's the Nordic Bride. It's terrible. I know these are my characters, but I can never quite remember their damn names. I have nicknames for them. So there's the Nordic Bride. Then the one coming up next is I just call her the Gypsy, because their nicknames come from things in their backstories. So, and this one I personally have this like connection to, because even though the character's not Asian, my wife's Filipino, this character's like skin tone and hair are actually based on my wife. Then the next one, my assistant laughs at me over this one, because I call the next one I jokingly call her Miss Poshy Pants because she's this like just crazed kind of younger, early 20 something European aristocrat girl who's just, she's saucy. So that's so there are 4 of these pieces like this, and then of course there is let's go here, and I'll bring up Eva, and I love I love her. I just love Eva so much. This moment visually is, I could talk about the part of the story that in my mind this is from, but I just love this kind of what would you call it? There's something about her attitude here that I really like. So the way she came about, I love the character. So then let's see. Here's one that I think is going to open up. Let's see.
Because to talk about some of this stuff too, and we can't show it, but I think there's some nude stuff also with all these.
Yeah. Most of these I did not say for work versions. Some characters it's more appropriate for than others because they are so crazed. And there's a component of Eva that is about her urges and her.
I mean, if we go biblical, it makes sense. I mean, if you really want to go into the story of the Bible and all that stuff, and it's Adam and Eva, play on Adam and Eve, and urges and knowledge and experimentation.
And Eva is she is frequently a victim of her own urges and desires and proclivities and things like that. So there is a real. I mean, it's not a kid's book by any stretch. So, but it's also, sometimes I hate saying that because it's a mature book. And I feel like a lot of times when you say it's a mature comic, it's like, oh, it's tits and ass. Well, there's probably some nudity here and there.
I'll throw something out there. That's a mature book. Hungry Ghosts. Hungry Ghosts is Anthony Bourdain, and I forget his co-writer. It's a mature book. There is a little bit of nudity in it, and there's a little bit of suggestive stuff in it, but it's the idea of playing 100 Candles, right, in an anthology. It's really not. It's meant for 18 plus because you're dealing with adult themes and you're dealing with a lot of crazy shit in the book that is somewhat disturbing, right? But it's dealing with obviously being sophisticated, but. If I have a kid and he's 16 and he reads Hungry Ghosts, he's not going to be scarred, right? But my niece, who's 3, I'm not giving her Hungry Ghosts. Not yet, at least. If she's 13 or 14, it's not a bad book for her. But like, it's the same thing with everything, right? Like, I'm not going to go give my 3-year-old niece, certain books, right? Like, I'm not going to give her Robin Hood from Zenescope. That's a 12-year-old level book.
Yeah. My thing with that is like, there are mature books that are mature for various reasons. Maybe it's the humor, maybe it's who knows what. And this is a mature book because of the themes and ideas that it deals with. There's things that the story is allegories for that are really difficult subjects when you get down to it. And I mean, that to me is like, that is my favorite thing about like fantasy, sci-fi, and horror is when you're able to use these realms of fantasy for dealing with, difficult issues. I mean, that's it. I jokingly call it, putting the pill in the cheese. Like, when your dog needs to take a pill, you wrap it in a piece of cheese and you give it to him. It's like the trappings of all these genres and all this stuff. Those are the cheese. They're tasty. They're fun. They're cool. It's interesting. But
I was just watching an anime, right? I was just watching Psychopaths. Psychopaths is a gigantic question, and it's a super mature anime because it's the idea that there's an enforcement agency that can read your crime level, and then they try to bring you in before you commit the crime or you have committed the crime, and your level of criminality is going up, 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 and their objective is to bring you in before it becomes contagious, right? And it's basically measuring crime by number. It's Minority Report on steroids. There's some sexual themes in there, but there's really no nudity in that show at all. But again, it's 18 plus because you're dealing with a complicated concept and you're really raising a complicated, controversial topic of should we be stopping crimes before they're committed if we detect that you are reaching a level of criminality. And that's somewhat of this book to some degree, and not to the same theme, but this is what's going on from what I read and understand is that there's a lot of themes and a lot of stuff that's in here that's okay. It's debatable.
Yeah, it's a heavy book. It is. It's a thematically heavy book, and thematically heavy while also still being, I think, a fun gothic horror. I mean, that's the core of it. That really is the core of it. Is that it is a gothic horror graphic novel. Heavily influenced by, artistically heavily influenced on the inside by like Bernie Wrightson's my North Star on the stuff. Heavily influenced by Bernie, but then on the writing side, obviously influenced by, Mary Shelley and Bram Stoker. That's a given. But then there's a lot of, I guess, there's mood that calls back to a love I have of like Anne Rice. I am a huge Anne Rice fan. Huge Anne Rice fan. Have been for most of my life now. And then there's elements that are, from that kind of have influences from Clive Barker. God, Clive Barker's a big one. Elements of Lovecraft. There's the gothic horror novel is a thing for a reason, and it's a great genre for a reason, and it's a genre it's a format that is great for dealing with really difficult subject matter.
I get it. Kind of fascinating. Again.
This piece on screen, by the way, this is the one that was the first drawing that I did. I was doing it on live stream, and then it became a painting that kind of opened the door to all this. And I just love this piece of artwork. The original of it is hanging in my living room.
Oh, that's crazy. It's crazy. I don't have any originals. That's not true. I have some commissions, but I love art. And I love really cool stuff, and I love pages. And I should have bought a page from Scotty Young. It was Lando Calrissian, his baby cover of Lando Calrissian. And I had money, and I should have bought it. I should have made an offer, but oh man, it would have been great. It would have been so much fun to have that one, because they don't come up now, and it's terrible.
Well, I've been kind of hanging on to these covers. I've had people looking at them and making offers and things on them because these are all original airbrush paintings. These are on the airbrush paintings on the illustration board, and
it's so I'm gonna phrase it, and feel free to tell me if I'm wrong how you feel about it. So there's stuff that I have that are really, really rare in cards, in comics, and look. If somebody was to offer me, I have a very rare WWE comic book signed by the Four Horsewomen and the Bella Twins. If somebody was to offer me $15,000 for it, I would take their offer, right? Because the money is too good to say no to, But if somebody's offering me like $3,000, for a lot of people, $3,000 is like, oh my God, it's $3,000 and you paid $250 for it. What, are you fucking crazy? And I'm like, I really like the book though. I really like this book. if somebody was to offer me 10,000 in cash, I might consider, because that's a lot of money for something. But I still might say no because I really like the book, right? And so, but once you get to a certain number, you can no longer say no.
Oh yeah,
So
definitely.
but like there's also a lot of other stuff where like I have other stuff where I like the book, but I'm willing to sell it. I mean, but there's other stuff that I have that I'm just like, it's just not on the market. And I don't really care what somebody offers because I love that thing and I like to have it. And I could sell 15 other things before I'm going to go sell that one. So I don't know if that's how you feel about it, but that's how I feel about certain things in my collection.
There are certain things in my life that are like that, and you can see some of them hanging behind me. My guitars are my babies, and like I don't know if you and I were put together by McKay, right? From it was McKay from over in Knoxville.
Well, what are you talking about?
I think I was pointed to you by a mutual friend. Or you?
No, I just reached out to you because.
Okay, I'm thinking of somebody else then, because I
was just watching the stream with Mike and Mindy.
Okay.
A while ago, and
okay.
And I was like,
I've had a flood of people getting in touch with me over the last couple of days, so I had it in my head that you and I had gotten together because of a mutual friend.
No. I was just watching that stream. I'm like, oh, I'll hit him up. Everybody needs media, right? And I don't care if you already reached your goal. Everybody needs media. It doesn't matter.
Oh yeah. I mean, okay. So that's a funny thing with Kickstarter. Like, there's a goal posted on it. I wish they didn't have that on there. I really do, because like I feel like there are times when people are like, oh, they made their goal, and they might wander on by for some reason, and like I'm like, no, I'm like, my goal is as much as I can humanly make off this. Okay, seriously, because the higher I go with this, the more successful it is, the more that funds my ability to keep making this kind of stuff.
I've had this conversation with people, and it goes one of two ways. Once you reach your goal, great. What do you do with the money afterwards? And people either are very open about it, or they're very closed about it. Because if you need 10,000, which is ideally the bare minimum, hopefully, but neither here nor there. But in theory, it should be that. And then you do 30,000. We'll use Star Wars as an example, right? They did $50,000. Your printing costs technically go up because you're printing more books, and there's other stuff that's in there that's going to cost money. But if you now have an extra $25,000 that is essentially profit, guess what it does? It funds issue 6. And it benefits the business. So the more money you raise, the further you go. Or conversely, the other thing that nobody wants to talk about is that this is a business, right? So Kickstarters are part of a business now. And if you are doing 3 issues and issue 1 cost X, and then issue 2, you made 5,000, but you're still 5,000 in the hole. And then by issue 3, you've now made an extra 15,000. You might have debt on your business, and you might have to tackle that debt, and nobody wants to talk about this shit because unfortunately everybody thinks, oh, it's a crowdfunding. Bullshit. Yeah. Kickstarter's not crowdfunding anymore. It's a business venture seed round with no equity. So let's stop all fucking pretending. I'm sorry, everybody. This is a hot take. But everybody's pretending it's a crowdfunding thing. It's a ventured seed round without any equity given to your backers. Instead, they're getting a product. And there's nothing wrong with that. So once you get the money, you can do whatever the fuck you want to do with the money. There's no ethics in this.
Oh, that's funny.
It's no
I think you and I are on the same page with that. It's like, what are you gonna do with all that money you make? It's like none of your damn business. Frankly, I mean, that's like asking people, how much do you make at your job? It's none of your damn business.
This is the ethic part of it. The ethic part of it is that you owe me a fucking book if I backed your campaign. You owe me a fucking book, and you better damn make sure the first dollars. So if I hopefully Mike and Minnie aren't going to mind. I back Star Horse. I expect a fucking book. Okay. Now, if that book cost them $8 or $10 to make, and I backed at 25, I don't give a shit what you do with the other 15. But that $10, that's my fucking money, and I want my fucking book. So that's where it falls, right?
I can tell you that one of the reasons I'm happy to work with them is like I've known people who have done what I would call some spurious things with Kickstarters and Indiegogos and shit like that, and I'm like, and I'll be talking to them. I'm like, hey,
I'll name somebody, but it's somebody who knows it. It's Ryan Cummings with the book Fever. What happened is
I'm not familiar with him.
He's gone out of comics. It was bullshit, right? Every month I put up a post on his thing saying, "Where's the fucking book?" So because I was in for $32, right? Not a huge loss. There's only 2 times I've been screwed on Kickstarter, and I backed like 150 projects, so it's not terrible. But my point that I'm getting at here is that it's like he tried to relaunch the thing, and it's like, where's the fucking book, man? Like, it's a problem. And so that's the thing. But once I get my book, I don't give a shit what you do with the money else. But whatever that book costs, that first money that I back is what I'm owed.
I'm going to bring something up here to show you, just to allay any fears that you and I have. We have about 2.5 weeks left in the campaign for this. We're doing a short campaign of 3 weeks. Here are pages from the inside of this. Is this showing up? I had to switch over.
Yeah. It's showing
These
up.
are interior pages.
Let me tell you a story about somebody. I'm not going to name who it is. They didn't start drawing the fucking book until they reached their goal on Kickstarter. And I thought that was fucked up.
Well, with this, one of the things that I loved about Mike and Minnie is that when we first started talking about this, it wasn't a question of, hey, when will you start the book? The question was, how fast can you have this book done? And I really respect the hell out of them asking me that question. And I work really fast, and I'm not going to brag about how fast I work, but I work really quick. So, I am 20 pages deep in the pencils and inks for this right now.
Let me ask you this. I'm going to ask you a question, because if you're doing a 32-page book, my expectation, and maybe my expectation is different than everybody else as a consumer, is I think 8 pages, if you can afford it and you're going as you can, is reasonable. But I think you should have 8 pages done before you go in. And I'm not saying it has to be fully colored, right? But it's better if it is. It's better if it's inked. But because 8 pages says, let's say you hire somebody and they're charging, the whole page process is going to run you $150, $200.
I'll give you my hot take on that, and this is probably controversial to people.
But the reason why I say it, I want to finish the point, is that I need to see some skin in the game.
Well, my personal thought on it is, why are you starting a campaign if you don't have at least half the book done?
That's a fair argument too. I don't disagree with it. I
know that I personally, like this being my book. This is Mike and Minnie are running the campaign for me, but this is my first personal marquee moment on Kickstarter, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing it unless it's like
you and me.
There is a time frame that I absolutely require myself to be able to fulfill this in.
I 100% agree with you. The reason why I say this is that I have been I'm in a good position economically, right? But I've also been dirt poor, and I've eaten ramen and peanut butter and jelly, and I've eaten mustard sandwiches. I've eaten ketchup sandwiches. No, that's not true. That's not true. Ketchup was a treat, but it's really good when you get relish. It's really good when you can afford relish, and you're in a bad position. Let me explain how I started my business, right? So I foregoed a lot of things to start my business and to do where I'm going. And now I'm in a much better, healthier place. And I get to have really cool shit now. Because I got lucky. There was other things that happened to me, but a lot of good decisions were made. But in the beginning, it was not fun. I ate mustard ketchup relish sandwiches, and I was lucky if I got peanut butter and bread, right? And jelly was a fucking treat, everybody. So I am generous. And the reason why I say it the way I say it is that if you don't have, if your book's going to cost you 3,000 and you don't have 3,000, but you have 1,500, I'm not saying that you need to have your whole fucking book done, because I understand that you need to. Some people are not in the same position on their first round out there, or they need the idea of crowdfunding it, right? I'm being reasonable and generous on this. And I understand that there's more risk with that. So your book better be fucking good, and also you better be priced in. Now, I agree, though, that at this stage in the game, if you can do it, your book should be done, or maybe you need 4 more pages, but the majority of your book should be fucking done.
If it's like the schedule that I am on with this, by the time before the Kickstarter is done, all of the internal pencils and inks and lettering will all be done. And the only thing that will have a little bit of overlap to the end will be finishing out the colors, which may actually be done before it's done. We'll see. But because I'm doing the colors myself as well. And those will probably be done, if not by the end of the Kickstarter, then within the following couple of weeks, so that I want to be able to turn this thing around inside a very tight time frame, because we saw some good numbers in the pre-launch, and we've made our goal already, and it looks like things are continuing to move forward, and I want everybody who supports this to understand that supporting something from me, which this is from me and Mike and Mindy. I want them to understand that supporting something from me and whoever is attached to it means you will get your book in a timely manner, and it's going to be you're going to get a quality book with quality art in quality production inside a time frame that doesn't suck. So
I agree. In which that, unfortunately, and I like to get cards. I got a very nice positive feedback from somebody. Somebody said, I pre-ordered this card during the pre-sale, before the pre-sale even started. Card was printed, and I got this before eBay's expectation date, where the person was thoroughly impressed that they were expecting the card in 40 days and they got it in like 18, and they're like, what the fuck? Like, but then I have clients where they've been waiting 250 days, but they also got an order number, so they know that unfortunately, they put a base from a game inside a card, and they know that just takes 250 days. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, guys. Like, I don't know what to tell you, but they also bought a $500 card, so they understand that I can't do anything about it. And they know I'm going as fast as I can go. And then people are like, I get it. I completely understand. And then when they get this stuff, they're like, you weren't going to screw me, because these people have my phone number, which is sort of not legal on eBay, but they know that and they haven't done it, because nobody in their right mind gives somebody their phone number and say, I'm going to screw you.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever done that. So again, but I wish the card was done, because I want these people to have it. I want like a turnaround time of 15 days, because I want you to fucking have it, so I don't have to deal.
There's definitely a great deal of value in showing the customer that you're conscientious about making sure they get what they're after. That's a valuable thing.
These cards.
I'm noticing the time, and like, the later I stay up, the harder it is for me.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I want to give you a chance to promote yourself.
Yeah. It's like I'm an old fart who literally gets up with the sun. So it's like, I'm like, oh my God, all these people, these podcasts, and they all want to do them at like 9 p.m. to midnight and whatever. I'm like,
I'm sorry.
I'm old. Get off my lawn.
You could have done it at 6 a.m. I would have woke up.
Nah, it's cool, dude. It's cool.
But no. Where can people find you, bother you, hit you up, all that stuff? Because obviously you got a campaign going on, and we're back it and all that stuff.
Well, with the campaign, I don't know if there's a place in here for me to drop links or whatever for it, but
I have it in the description.
Oh, cool. Well, there's that. So that takes care of that. The current campaign is Brides, which is on Kickstarter. Gothic horror graphic novel. We've been talking about, showing you artwork. Then if you want to follow up with me other places, like I said, I'm old, so the best place for me is probably Facebook. So there's a couple of Facebook pages that track my stuff. There's Les Garner artist page, and then there's my studio is called 6S1 Media or 6S1 Publishing. So if you put SIXUS1 in anything I come up, or you put my name in anything I come up, and I'm on Instagram. You can look me up there. I'm on Twitter, but I don't really on X, and I don't really post that much there. So, but yeah, Facebook is a good one. Or you can just slap my name in Google, and I come right up. So, I mean that's pretty much it. I know it's kind of scattershot, but at this point, I'm hard not to find.
Fair enough. And then obviously I'm just going to continue to promote myself here. And I'm going to keep saying is you got to support what you want to see get made. And support comes in a lot of ways, and Kickstarter is a good position of that. There's also other things that you can do. Obviously following, sharing things out is helpful. And just telling somebody you like their work is also great. But money is a good one, guys. Money's
yeah, money talks. And I have some appearances coming up. I'll be signing books and doing sketches and things at Nirvana Comics in Knoxville, Tennessee on April 25th. Then the weekend of May 9th, I'll be at FrankenCon. Also, it's a horror show over in Knoxville. I get a lot of love from the Knoxville area. Knoxville's a cool town. I really like that place. I'm trying to think what else. I know I've got other ones coming up, but those are the two immediate ones. So,
and then I'm going to continue to promote myself because it's my show. Obviously, I am Pop Anime Comics on Twitter/Hacks. I am Pop Anime Comics on the Instagram. I am Pop Anime Comics on Facebook. I am Pop Anime Comics on YouTube. So if you're not watching on YouTube, please go to YouTube and subscribe. I have a lot of interviews. I think I have like 1,000 plus now. And I got a lot of micro content, and a lot of micro content is coming back in May. So stuff from the vault is coming out. And this year I am releasing 20 interviews that are audio that have never been released before. So it's a lot of really interesting content that's coming that has never been released before. So if you're into really good interviews and a lot of content, I got you covered. Please subscribe there. It means a lot. YouTube is free, guys, and it's a great way how to support what I do. And then furthermore, TikTok is another one that's also going to be getting, if it's still available, if it's still around, that's Pop Anime Comics. And then the other thing that I do that I really want to push and let people know is that I have an eBay store. So look for comics and collectibles. Come shop with us on eBay. And I sell a lot of comics. I sell a lot of cards. I tend to sell a lot of one-on-ones. And I do have some really, really expensive stuff in my store right now. And I have a lot of WNBA stuff right now in my store. So if you're looking for that, and I'm cheaper than Panini, which is the company that does it, and I offer free shipping. So if you're looking to buy 1 or 2 cards, you're going to get it cheaper from me than anybody else. And I do match prices. So if you show me somebody's cheaper than me, I'll match their price. 100% I'll match their price. So definitely be on the lookout for that, and just shoot me a screenshot, and we'll figure it out. So that's everything I got going on, and I'm going to give you the final word.
Thanks for having me on, dude. It's been a cool conversation. And any of y'all who go and support Brides, thank you very much for that. And with that, I am going to do the old man thing and shuffle off to bed.
And on that, everybody, that is a